welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmidt, and this is episode 37. I've got Adam Sutter with me here, the Area Director for Junior Achievement. They're teaching financial literacy, career readiness, and entrepreneurship to students throughout northeastern Wisconsin, and 88% of their alumni are satisfied with their careers. How about you? Are you satisfied? You're going to love this conversation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, you want to know why? Well, I'll tell you why. My why is to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. Again, to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. And I want to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving by 2030. That's 10 years. That's 100 million people per year. So let's go. Join me in this mission to help equip the world for success and inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving. All right, so I'm with Adam Sutter. He is the Area Director for Junior Achievement here in the northeastern Wisconsin area, is it? Or is it just
Green Bay? So I actually do two areas here in the state. So I do greater Green Bay area, which includes kind of from Manitowoc up into Dorth County and up into Marinette County, kind of that area. And then I also oversee the Wolf River area, which is Shawano and Menominee County.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. And so you're not from Green Bay, Wisconsin. We were just chatting about that. Yep. It's been fun the past 15, 20 minutes, getting to know Adam a little bit off record. And we got some smooth jazz here serenading us for,
yes.
It's setting the mood for our time together. And we're at the Exchange over in De Pere, which is just a great place. And this is where you call home, right, De Pere?
Yes, yeah.
Are you guys on the east side or west side?
We live on the east side of De Pere, yeah.
Cool.
My wife teaches in the De Pere School District, and my kids go to school in De Pere.
Yeah.
And so actually our office for JA is also just across the bridge here in De Pere. So
Nice.
So yeah, hang out here a lot. No.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
It is. It's very nice. Nice place to have meetings with people.
For sure. Well, cool. Well, let's get into it. So, I have no idea who you are. We connected via Amanda. I think she was on episode 6.
Yes.
And she's the executive director for Howe Community Resource Center, and she connected us and talked to you and said, "Hey, you should do it, right? You should connect."
Yeah.
We did it, and here we are, right? Mm-hmm. And your episode will drop in the next few weeks. You'll probably, I might be off in the numbers a little bit, but maybe like episode 37 or 38 or something like that. So.
Very cool.
We'll see what happens, but aside from who you've shared this with in your network, who's listening right now, a lot of listeners probably have no idea who you are, right?
Sure.
So take us down that lane. Like, where do you come from? We already mentioned it's not from Green Bay, so how did you get here?
Yeah.
A little about family, what you love to do when you're not overseeing activities and business here for Junior Achievement. So who is Adam Sutter?
Yeah, I'd like to say it's more complicated than it probably is, but no, I am from kind of southern Wisconsin, so my parents are both from the Sun Prairie area, and I grew up in Portage, which is kind of halfway between the Dells and Madison, to give everybody landmarks.
No.
But small town, really enjoyed growing up there. My wife and I both went to school at La Crosse.
Yeah.
And like I told you, I always tell people she won the job race, so she graduated a semester before I did and got a job teaching up here in Green Bay, and so narrowed my search for jobs after school, and we've been in Green Bay ever since. So about 15 years now, almost 16 years actually in May. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we really like the area a lot.
It's a great place to raise a family.
It is, and growing up in a very small town, we used to have to run down to the east side of Madison if we wanted to go to the mall or Target or
something.
Things like that. So. Having to jog across Green Bay anyway to get stuff is not that big a deal, and so it feels probably bigger than it does to a lot of people for me. But it's a great size, so I don't have to sit in traffic on the way home from work and that kind of thing. So great place to raise a family, and there's enough to do here.
Yeah, and even Costco's on the east side, right?
Yes.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
So. We joke, I'm born and raised here, but my wife's from Minneapolis, and I spent about 8 years out in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And we're just not big city folks, and so we moved back to Green Bay a couple years ago, and so we joked that it's just our biggest problem these days are going all the way over to Costco because it's 20 minutes away on the east side type of thing. It's just kind of Green Bay doesn't have any traffic. I mean,
And even on the game days, in town, it disperses pretty quick. So.
Yeah. Once you're here a little bit, you figure out which way you can go and not get into traffic too badly.
Yeah. And so you've got a couple kiddos, right? A boy and a girl.
We do. Yep. So we got an 11-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son.
Awesome.
So two was what I wanted when we got married, and my wife kept trying what if the second one's a girl? Are you going to try for a boy? And luckily, we didn't have to have that conversation. So we got a boy, and we were good with just the two.
What about the family name?
I know, right? So, but no, they were happy. They were healthy babies. Yeah. We were very grateful, and we were good there.
Awesome. And they're into everything? What are they into?
Yeah, my daughter loves to dance. She dances here in town, and so that's kind of her activity. Yeah. And then luckily it's not super hardcore traveling to meets all over the place and everything. Yeah. It's more laid back, so I'm good with that. And then my son got in last year to soccer a little bit, cool. So we finally last fall did our first driving places on the weekend to play soccer. So I guess we're officially soccer parents now, but no, he likes doing that. Dad. Yeah. Apparently, they didn't have it in school when I was in school. It wasn't offered as a sport. I did. I obviously am not physically imposing, so I ran track and I did play football. Cool. I played running back in football, so I was a small, fast guy.
Awesome.
So that was the thing.
Yeah, there's a place for everyone, right?
There is. Yes, it worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very cool. So I was going to ask you a question and totally forgot. They say you shouldn't say right? But
right.
This is unscripted, unprompted. I'm not editing out the ums, so take that. Well, so that's awesome. You guys have things you love to do as a family together when you get the time together?
Yeah, we do. We go for a lot of bike rides. Cool. It's something that the kids decided they were into, and so we will run up to York County and go to Peninsula or something, go on a bike ride for the day. And my wife's sister lives in town, and they have two kids also, and so it's pretty easy to throw all the bikes in a couple cars and head up there for the weekend and for a day and go for a bike ride and get back at a decent time. So we like to do that a lot. We typically one night a weekend we'll have a movie night. The kids are finally getting old enough that we don't have to watch the same movie over and over again, so I'm enjoying that. They're willing to spread their time a little bit more between different movies. So
any movies that you have almost completely memorized?
Oh gosh, Tangled was a big one when it came out. My daughter was all about that one, and luckily, all those Disney Pixar type movies, they do a pretty good job of adding a few jokes that parents can enjoy. So they're usually pretty good. But my son is a huge fan of the Lego movies, so we watch those a lot. But it's nice to have them be a little bit older now and get to spread out a little bit the viewing of specific movies. So
that's awesome. It's fun. Whether it's books or movies or fun shows, it's just finding good stories is really cool.
Yes.
And I love the fascination, when there's we love that. So there's one that we came across called Tintin.
I've seen it. Never. I think we watched parts of it.
Who directed all the Lord of the Rings movies, and Steven Spielberg, right? And they brought this old, what I think was initially an old TV series, and I don't exactly know the decade, but brought it to life. And so the movie's fantastic, so I highly recommend that. And it's kind of like this, it's not cartoon, but it's not real people, but some kind of sweet spot in between is this animation. They just did a fantastic job, and obviously with those two minds together, you can imagine.
Sure.
It's just a fantastic story, and it's just cool. But so then we found on Amazon Prime the original cartoon series.
Oh, okay.
And our kids just love it. So it's this younger kid who's a detective and a journalist. Gone detective, and his dog Snowy, and they get into a bunch of trouble and all that kind of stuff, and it's just fun stories. So but your boy being 7 might really enjoy checking out the movie. It was well done. But we love Monsters Inc. And you get into some of those movies, it's you're laughing. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that's one thing that they did well with Tintin was some of the characters. My wife and I were just cracking up. It was just enjoyable. So
yes, it's nice to be able to enjoy that with your kids rather than suffer through, some sort of, kid movie or something.
Now,
like that.
granted, our kids are still pretty young, so
Sure.
So maybe we'll have some rough waters in the years ahead.
Yeah,
Maybe we won't.
they'll each pick their favorite, and you'll see it more times than you want to, but it'll be okay. And then they'll leave it alone for a while and go back to it, and it'll be better then after a break. So.
Yeah, we'll have to do a separate episode on just parenting, right?
Yeah, there you go. new podcast for you.
Pass it on the what not to do.
What not to do parenting. There you go.
So yeah, man. So you got to Green Bay because your wife won the job race, right?
Yeah.
But so share with our listeners, what is it exactly that you do? What does it mean to be the area director for junior achievement? What does it mean to be the area director in 2 different areas? And kind of walk us how you got to there. Like when back in school in lacrosse, like did you kind of always know that that's what you wanted to do, or did the opportunity present itself somewhere along the way? Did that kind of have like a certain evolution to it?
Sure.
What is it that you do? Walk us through that.
Yeah, I'll tell a really long-winded version of that, and if you want to edit, you can. I know you said you don't, but no. Baby. So to tie it all in, when I remember being in high school, and so my growing up, we were fine. We didn't have a lot of money, but we always had food and always had a place to stay. And my parents didn't go to college, but I have 3 sisters. We all went, and it was not. My parents wouldn't have been mad if we had not gone to college, but it was always, when you go to college,
right.
So we all went, and the only thing I can remember doing, as far as any sort of career thoughts, was a bubble test, I think my sophomore year of high school, that told me I should be a log truck driver.
And that makes 2 of us.
Yeah, no offense to truck drivers at all. It's a special skill, definitely. Having driven, landscaping equipment around through college, I could do it. It's just not my favorite thing to do, so I'm not sure where that came from, but I went without a whole lot of direction. And took an econ class my freshman year of college and did well. I think basically because it was the same econ class I had just taken in high school. So it was a little bit of a repeat. It was just basic.
And econ is economics, right?
Yes, yep. Basic microeconomics. Did well. The professor suggested that I double major in that and something else, and said that a lot of people do economics and finance. So I did that until I took my first finance class and realized I didn't like numbers that much.
Right.
So I happened to be in a marketing class that I really enjoyed, and so I double majored in marketing and economics, and then discovered the communications department later on in my time at school, and really kind of got into that. So I have a PR minor, and so I was looking for something in that marketing kind of field, something with communications. I knew that was something I'd like to do, and actually to go back just a little bit to high school, being on the football team, my coach was one of my history teachers, and so he came to me in one study hall, and they wanted us as a football team to participate in a Christmas, what did they call it? The giving tree, I think they call it. So Christmas tree at the bank downtown, and everybody could pick a card off the tree and buy a gift, and so they wanted our help distributing it around town, and he actually asked me to organize the distribution of all that, and
awesome.
So it felt cool to be put in charge of something like that, and I made teams, little groups of guys to go out and deliver to different places, and so that was kind of my first experience with, aside my parents dragging us to Thanksgiving dinners and things like that to serve people. I mean, we did plenty of that growing up too, but it was my first chance to kind of be in charge of something and help somebody out, and that felt good. I didn't necessarily think about jumping into a career right away, but had applied at American Cancer Society out of colleges. Yep. So shortly after I got up here to Green Bay, I got an email from American Cancer Society that they were hiring in the area, and I'm sure it was just a general email that they send out to anybody that had applied. I applied a lot of places out of college, but it's something that's affected my family, and so I applied and got the job, and so I worked there for 8 years. Started out just kind of doing events and stuff, and then I was managing staff. I actually managed the office in Madison for a little bit from Green Bay, so I was commuting a few days a week, which is where I started listening to a lot of podcasts and to something to do on the road. And then ended up back here in Green Bay, but overseeing staff on a division level, so in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Iowa, as well as Wisconsin. And it was really cool for the first few months to be on a plane in the middle of the day flying places. But when you have young kids at home and you only need a couple of calls with everybody crying in the background to decide that being closer to home would be a good thing. So
the house is burning down.
Right, yeah.
In South Dakota, right?
And you can't make it there, and you feel really bad. But so I applied for and got a job here with a local nonprofit and worked there for a couple of years. And so I've been at Junior Achievement is my 5th nonprofit organization that I've worked for, and actually started there the day that I finished my MBA here at St. Norbert, so it was kind of cool to finish that and start this new job.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
So Junior Achievement works with volunteers to go into kindergarten through 12th grade classrooms and teach financial literacy, career readiness, and entrepreneurship. So those are all things that kids get to some degree in school, but we just put a little bit more of a focus on it. So all the classes that we have are meet state standards for curriculum, and it's it's an important part of what the kids are able to learn. And so for me, as a kid that grew up in a great loving home but without a lot of resources, and to have the opportunity to go into schools and teach kids about that kind of thing and present them with opportunities to find out what they might enjoy doing and what things they're good at and how that translates into a career, and what's the path to that. Is it an apprenticeship? Is it associate's degree or a 4-year degree? What does it look like to find that career that you're happy with? And one of the I won't share a ton of statistics, but one of them that is very cool to me, alumni of Junior Achievement programs, they did a study a few years ago. 88% of them are satisfied with the career they're in, which is very different than where we're at right now.
Usually 85% are not satisfied.
Right, right. So I just think that's really cool. It's a great opportunity to get into the school, teach the kids about a lot of different opportunities that are there, and then help them find what they're going to enjoy doing when they're older. I like what I do, but it was a little bit of a roundabout way to get here, and in this job that I'm in, which a lot of people take. But anything I think that we can do to help kids along that path and help them find the right thing, it's just really exciting for me to be a part of. And so I have 2 part-time staff here in Green Bay and 1 part-time staff in the Wolf River area, and I'm very proud of the fact that together, between the 2 areas, this year we'll have over 600 classes and over 12,000 kids that we've served through lots of great volunteers. But we've got a pretty good-sized footprint for just a small staff, and so very excited about that and the opportunity to get into a lot of schools and just, again, help kids kind of figure out what they want to be when they grow up, and then especially what to do with that money once they have it. Is a big thing too, because I don't know about you, but I remember getting that first credit card, or it's like I hear things about these. Is this a good thing, or right?
Hold on, this isn't about me. This is about you.
Yeah, right. They'll turn the spotlight off.
Oh man, I've got some stories for you.
Oh yeah, no. But the thing is, we all do it, and that's the cool thing with the volunteering is that you get to go into a classroom and you get to share those things with the kids around. The curriculum is set.
You get to share what not to do.
Yep. basically you're sharing your experience as an adult with a lot of these kids on credit and those types of decisions, and then on the career you chose and why you chose it, and things like that. So they get to learn from you, and again make the best decision for themselves, and hopefully find something that they enjoy doing.
And I love it. Yeah. So there's so much there. And first of all, I had no idea that was the scope of junior achievement. I shared with you before. I remember them coming into school.
Yeah.
I really didn't remember like at the time. I remember enjoying it. Like whenever they came in, I enjoyed it. But I couldn't have told you like, oh, this is financial literacy, career readiness, and entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
Where do we even begin? So there's so much there. Like, so first of all, like I've talked on previous episodes about. Well, actually, so like part of my personal story, like not having great parents, and very supportive, but it's kind of like, whatever you want to be, we got you. We got your back.
Yep.
Which is great, but if it stops there and it doesn't move on to like a shepherding or a guiding, as far as like, hey, well, let's figure out then what do you want to do?
Right.
Let's reverse engineer that plan and let's help you to get there, right? Then if it doesn't move on to that phase, it's just like whatever you want to do, we got you. The kid can feel like you're in the middle of the ocean. And you could swim 360 different directions, but you have no idea which one to choose.
Right.
And now all the options become chains and you drown, right? And it seems like that might be a prevalent thing in our day and age, where a lot of folks, just even older folks, adults, don't really know what they want out of life or where they're maybe going, and they had a path that was chosen for them rather than choosing their path. And it seems like, if I could sum it up, like you're really helping to equip students to be able to choose their path, whether they want to be an entrepreneur or build a business, whether to even know that that's an option,
right?
Or they want to choose a career and not just blindly, but saying, and you phrase it almost exactly how I do. What do you get at? What do you enjoy doing? And what are your economic opportunities? Right? And where those three things overlap, where you can ever more drive to the middle of those three things, that you're going to find a sweet spot. Like, so sure, there's a lot of things you could do. Doesn't mean that you're going to enjoy all those things. Doesn't mean that you're good at all those things. It doesn't mean that you're going to have economic opportunities with all those things. But once you start to kind of zoom in, then you have a handful of things that are probably going to likely be very satisfying and fulfilling long term. And that's really cool to also hear the side of the back end, because the parable has always been like 85% of people are unhappy with their jobs, right? However X percent aren't even working, in the field in which they studied in college, right? All that kind of stuff. And you guys are onto that trend and helping in incredible ways to turn it on its head, which is just awesome. So I just verbally vomited all over the table here, but it's passionate, and I hope that's actually part of what this podcast helps to accomplish.
Sure.
But probably for folks that are later in life, right? And I love what you guys are doing. It's like, let's not wait till they're 40. Let's not wait till they're 50 years old. Like, let's go get them now. Like, let's go help them. If they maybe don't have that somewhere in their life that can help to kind of give that careful guidance, at least we can introduce them to that and start to help them think through, even from a young age, kindergarten, all the way through senior in high school, getting ready off to go take on the world. Help them to think carefully through these things so that they choose their path and not just have it chosen for them.
Yeah,
I love it, man.
And like I said, the schools do some of this stuff with the kids, but one of the things that we bring to the table is the volunteer aspect, and bringing that random person who does a podcast. They may not have any idea what that is or how that works, and I'll sign you up. But they get the chance to hear about that through the lens of whatever they happen to be learning, whatever activities they're doing as part of the curriculum that they have. They get the chance to see multiple things throughout their school experience. Again, I hate to throw out a bunch of statistics, but 1 in 5 kids goes into the same career as a volunteer they have in their JA classroom. So it's that being in a classroom and letting the kids ask questions and learn more about what people are doing in their jobs. And saying, well, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do that. And so the opportunity to do that, I know for me this is going to sound really corny, and I haven't checked how old you are. I feel like I'm older than you, but hopefully some people will get the reference.
Hold on, wait. How old am I?
I have no idea.
Oh, I'm 33.
33. So I've got a few years on me, but not too bad. I would have said late 20s, but so no.
Stop it! I can't take it.
Right. You can pay me later. I watched when I was a kid the movie Father Bride came out.
Oh yeah.
So having 3 sisters growing up,
Steve Martin.
yep. I was watching that movie, but it was always just really cool to me that he owned that shoe company, and that, you know, he could throw a wedding for his daughter in the backyard, and he had a decent, you know, fun-looking car, and, you know, it's like, man, how do you do that? And, you know, nowadays I would assume we'd call that more of a lifestyle business, but just the fact that, like, that was new to me. I didn't have that knowledge of that being a possibility. I'm still trying to figure out what business I'm going to start.
Starting a shoe business.
It won't be shoes. I'm not that
drop shipping on Amazon. Man.
I'm not that into shoes, but just the idea that, you know, that this guy was able to provide that kind of a living for his family.
So cool.
And obviously, at least in the movie, it looked like he really enjoyed what he was doing, and, you know, his employees enjoyed him, and you know, and working there, and so that was a really cool thing for me to see as an example, and still a goal of mine to someday figure out something that I'd like to do and make a living doing that somehow. But yeah, I have enjoyed working in the nonprofit world. I always tell my wife, even if I have bad days at work, I at least feel like I'm accomplishing something. So it makes it easier to get up and go in the morning, and everybody has bad days, but hopefully something I did during the day made a difference to somebody, and so that's a good thing for me.
Well, yeah, that actually kind of gets into this. Well, this next question is why do you do what you do? What is it about the nonprofit world that keeps you swimming in that? Why even give thought to starting a business in the future? What is it about, like, in Adam's life? Like, what's that greater purpose or that vision or that aim that keeps you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, again, the nonprofit thing for me is just I just like feeling like I accomplished something. You'll appreciate the whole Thomas the Tank Engine being useful. I thought that it was a little funny, but I kind of get it now. I mean, it's good to feel like you did something useful. And I worked for a couple of years for a company here in town, and great family-run business, and it was wonderful. The owner was somewhat retired and living out in San Diego, and as nice as they were and everything, it was just, I started thinking a little bit about, do I want to work really, really hard so that he can get a nicer place out there, which more power to him. He put in a lot of work and built a great company, or do I want to put my energy into something that I feel like would make more of a difference for other people and help folks. So that's kind of what's kept me in this world. And again, just the connection to this mission. I have this grand vision that someday we'll figure out how to offer some classes to every kid in every school in Northeast Wisconsin, and get them all figuring out what they want to be when they grow up and what to do with the money when they get it. And gosh, wouldn't that make a cool place to live when everybody was happy with their jobs and had plenty of money to spend. And so we'll keep working at that. But
sounds like you have a concept for your podcast.
Yeah, right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's so I actually talk about it I really believe that we have a moral obligation to be successful.
Sure.
Right? Okay, so successful, people are define that, right? And it can look a lot of different things. But I think what it looks like for each individual is that whatever skills and abilities that you have, that you go all in on those skills and cultivating and developing them in service for the world around you, right? Mm-hmm. And you never stop as long as you can fog a mirror. Keep on getting better, right?
Sure.
And the things that you're good at, and the things that you enjoy, and economic opportunities, continue to pursue all the wedding of all three of those, and you're going to find that you'll have an awesome impact in the world, right? It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be a billionaire like Warren Buffett, that type of thing.
Sure.
But we all can be headed in that same trajectory where we're not competing against one another, we're actually working in tandem with each other. And the way that we best do that is really cultivating who we are, what we're good at, what we enjoy doing, and then going and unleash that on the world around us, in service for the world around us.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
And I think it's really cool, the younger, like we already do this with our kids at home, like help them to kind of start thinking along these lines, right?
Yeah.
My son's favorite word is cash flow, right? He loves, wants to come out and help dad, build the podcast business, right? That
Sure.
type of stuff. And it's just cool to get their wheels turning in that way. And like you said, it's, well, you didn't quite say it in this way, but I will. It's kind of like since when have we found it more attractive or more appealing to give up building our dreams and go and help someone else build theirs, right?
Sure.
Now that's a great thing. So that's what someone wants to do, and that goes back to like, hey, if that's a path you want to choose, great. Be proactive and choose that path, right? Mm-hmm. But then for people to know that there are options that, hey, you have these dreams, you got this idea, you have this business opportunity or idea, or you're good at this, and this, and you enjoy this, and this, and hey, have you thought about doing this, and this? Like, and helping people to see that there's opportunity there you don't have to just be the proverbial cog in the wheel here, right?
Sure.
That there are more options than that. But if you want to be the cog in the wheel, cool, more power to you. Be the best cog you possibly can be. Mm-hmm. You probably won't be on that wheel for very long because you'll probably outwork everyone else around there and you'll rise, whatever it is. But but choose that path, right? And that's what I love, what you guys are doing out of proactive sense, and even younger with kids and students, is to help them give options and make wise choices as far as regarding and self-awareness, who they are, what they're good at, and then opportunities, options.
Mm-hmm.
So, I love it, man. I'm not passionate about this stuff at all.
No, not at all. I can tell. But no, I mean, for me, it was just a really good. It's a really good fit of something that I identified that would be or would have been really helpful in my life, and so to have the opportunity to provide that for other kids is just really exciting.
And the cool thing is it's still not over, right? I mean, you still fog a mirror. We're still talking here.
Absolutely.
And even folks that are listening, like, hey, maybe you're not in high school. Most of you probably aren't, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you can't start thinking through these lenses and applying these concepts. The same thing that Adam's talking about, what Junior Achievement's achieving in teaching, high school students all the way down to kindergartners, they are transcendent, enduring principles that you can think through and begin to apply now in your life, which is really cool. So it's like, it's not over till it's over, right?
Absolutely.
Right? Until you're 6 feet under, right?
Yep.
It's not over, right? So continue to, understand what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what your opportunities are, and then go all in on those things, which is cool. So awesome. All right, well, this podcast is called What Not to Do for a reason, right?
Sure.
And we've been talking a lot about fun things, a lot about things that we should do. But I'm curious, man. You thought through a few failures that you've had in life as you've been looking over the breadth of your career and life. And what's one that really sticks out to you? And we'll do a deep dive on that one. We'll break it down.
Sure. I think the biggest one for me, and it's a mistake that I repeat. So obviously I'm not learning as quickly as I probably should, although I probably do it less than I used to. But it's I like to ask people for their advice, and I especially early in my career was not good at taking that advice and putting it through my own lens. So I found that at times that I try to step outside of my either comfort zone or character a little bit. Maybe that's a better way to put it. That just doesn't tend to go well for me. And I end up usually coming back then to who I am or how I would handle a situation. And it typically gets resolved or I feel better and I think to myself, I should have just done it that way to begin with. And so
you got a story around that?
I don't think a specific one doesn't pop to mind, but learning HR stuff early in my career, I like to think I'm a decent person, but the first time that you're dealing with certain HR situations, my mind goes to, okay, is there law about this, or is there something I should know that I don't know, and so you ask, and people that are more I'm not a very confrontational guy. I'm more of a, let's sit down, we'll talk it out, we'll figure it out. But people that are more confrontational, and I don't want to say all, but some people that are in leadership positions get there because they're willing to do those kind of things, and that's great, more power to them. It's just not how I typically handle things. So I think, early in my career it was asking for advice from somebody who was either my boss or somebody I knew at another company, and how would you handle this? And whether it's you got to sit down and you got to tell them this is how it's going to be, and that's just not. I would try and I would fumble and it wouldn't come off right, or it would just feel really yucky kind of. And so like I said, then you'd end up going back and just having a conversation with somebody and realize that they're a human being, and that I don't have to be mean. One of the things that again I think I picked up as a kid watching movies is the boss needs to be the jerk. And I think, there's a lot coming out around that now with all the whole servant leadership thing and all that good stuff. You see a lot of memes and other things online about leadership. And so I think understanding that, I think people are starting to understand that just because you're a nice person doesn't mean that you can't be a leader. And I think early in my career I thought, oh gosh, I need to kind of be a jerk to get things done. And so... I guess a good example would be the first meeting I had with my staff as a manager. I went in and I tried to kind of just lay down the law, and this is how it's going to be, and this is how I think we should work. And
did someone give you that advice going into that?
It was what my boss had done.
Yeah.
And that was how she was, and it worked. I have no problem with that. It was fine.
Yeah.
But for me to do it, it didn't feel right, and I didn't do a very good job, and I could tell people were just staring at me like, "What? Who's this guy?"
Bring us into that conference room, man. We're sitting around your table, and
you just see the blanks. And I wasn't necessarily mean about it, but it was. This is how I think this needs to work in order for us to be successful, and that's typically I would normally ask you, at least for an opinion first before I told you what I thought. I thought they need me to come in and be in charge, and in trying to do that, it didn't work out super well, and nobody was necessarily mad, and nobody said anything directly to me, but
they all quit the next day.
Not all of them, no. Right.
But some of them, right?
Yeah, I could just tell that it wasn't. It didn't land.
Yeah.
Well, and so I tried again a few weeks later, thought about it a little bit more, and we put together some team norms and some rules of how we want to work together. And so instead of me bringing along what I had learned in my previous role and saying this is how we're going to do it, I took some more time to get their opinions and said these are things that have worked well for me in the past, but I want to know what you think. And is this good? Is this bad? What else do you want to add to that? And so I think that I felt better about the conversation, and I think they generally were on board with what I wanted to do, but they had some other thoughts too and some things that they wanted to do. And so I think for me it's happened a few other times in my career where I like to get advice, I like to get opinions, but I know I've gotten to where I can tell that I don't feel comfortable with certain advice. So I've gotten a little bit better at stepping back then and trying to think of that through my lens. And okay, how can I break that out to accomplish the same thing, but do it in a way that I'm comfortable with and fits my personality and my style of either leadership or of just dealing with human beings. So that would be. Again, I don't know if you have, but I think just as a young person in a career, just thinking that this must be how it works, and just understanding that you're your own person and you've got your own way of doing things. And absolutely take advice. There's a lot of really good advice, but just be able to take that and put it through your own filter a little bit and make sure you're comfortable with what you're going to do or how you're going to do something.
Yeah, so. It reminds me of the distinction of principles and methods.
Mm-hmm.
So you got principles which are transcendent and methods which vary, right? Mm-hmm. Principles are a body, they don't change. but how they're applied does change. And so we'll double click on that here in just a few minutes, but let's zoom in here a little bit, because I think that idea, that topic's going to come in. So in this situation, you didn't do everything wrong, right?
Right.
There are some things that you actually did right before you made the failure. So I'm curious, like, from your perspective, what do you think you did right? Like, you had a boss, and now you got a chance to be the boss. Before you walked into that conference room, and turned over tables, right?
Yep.
What did you actually do right leading up to that point?
Yeah, so in this particular situation, I was the fourth manager in 3 years, and things just weren't going well. People weren't happy. And I think the thing I did right was that we needed to establish some sort of culture.
Yeah.
We needed to figure out how we work. I knew from working with some of the people that I was then in charge of that they weren't happy, and they didn't have much of a culture, and they didn't like coming to work. And my first day in the office, before I even had this meeting, the other managers of other departments that were in the office came into my office and told me how horrible it was to come to work there because my staff were not happy and they were kind of dragging everybody down. And so I think I was right that something needed to change, and that they needed some better culture and some rules, if you will, some norms around how we deal with people. And I mean, there were instances of not returning phone calls and being rude to people and that kind of thing. And so I think it was right that we needed to establish a way we work and make sure that everybody was on board and had some expectations of how things should go. And I think it's absolutely right as a manager to have expectations of your staff and make sure that those are clearly stated, and to make sure that they are comfortable with them, which again was probably part of my mistake, is I tried to push my own on them rather than giving them a voice. So I think those few things were right to do. If you get a little bit more zoomed in, I mean, it's right to have a meeting with everybody and say hi and let them know how I felt about things. And
like there's a handful of things I think you did right. I mean, I think first, that you, like you said, you sought to establish a culture, and that also required that you were actually listening to the feedback that was coming your way, right? And we know that in the failure wasn't where you went wrong was you stopped listening, or you didn't lead with listening in that regard. But beforehand you did, and you're listening to folks, and you had an awareness. Like sometimes we're just not aware of what's happening around us, or we're not aware of the dynamics. But you had awareness of the current situation. Sure. So you were aware of like, hey, I think this is what the solution needs to be, which I think a leader has to do. They can't just not have an idea of where they think they might need to go. And I think the other thing, and you didn't necessarily mention this, but that you sought to learn by example. I think we all learn by imitation. Right. So even to think back, hey, what would my former boss have done in this situation? I actually think that's a really good impulse. But like you said, if we just adopt the personality or have the advice come to us unfiltered, or like not coming through who we are, then that's the mistake of the principles and methods, right? We're applying the method, not the principle. What we want to do is, in learning from other leaders, what's the principle here in this behavior, or why were they like this during this time, and then how would it look to apply that principle in my current situation? It's easier just to apply the method. Oh, this is exactly what they did, now I'm going to do that. And that's sometimes where we can go wrong. And so speaking of wrong, let's get into that. You walk into the conference room, you did a lot of things right leading up to it. You thought you knew where you needed to go, and then bam. Yeah. Thor's hammer comes out, and this is where we're going.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can tell, I'm not a terribly demonstrative guy, but
I'm very intimidated.
So there wasn't a lot of yelling and table banging, but it was more of, this is how we're going to do things moving forward, and and I felt passionate about it. Yeah. I was part of a successful team, and this is how we did things, and that it worked. Yeah. But again, in laying that out, and this is how I want to do this, it had been a pretty loose ship, I'll say. They're walking in, and I knew that again from talking to the staff as a colleague prior to the couple weeks before I was given the opportunity to be their leader, and so I knew there needed to be some more rules or guidelines, I guess I'll say. And but I had this idea that I needed to be the one to say that was leading, is saying, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to turn it around, and we're going to be great, and we don't have to be bad anymore. We don't have to feel bad about our performance, and we don't have to, wouldn't have said this to them, but make everybody else mad because we're not happy. And so I obviously incorrectly thought that the right thing to do was come in and give a little bit of a pep talk, and this is how we're going to do things, and it's going to get better. And again, just the blank stares and the, you could just, having an 11-year-old daughter now who doesn't always roll her eyes, but I could tell, that was probably happening in her brain. I could kind of see that in the staff at that point in time.
All right, I want to know, who's next? Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
Did you know at that moment, like, you just made a mistake?
I could tell halfway through that it just wasn't landing. And then it's like, okay, do you keep going, or do you? And I feel like I kind of backed down a little bit and just kind of shared what I think should happen. And then we all left. We kind of did our thing, and we had another meeting in a couple of weeks, and I admitted at that, like, guys, that didn't go how I thought it would go in my head. That wasn't, what I thought it would be, and so I'd like to try it again, and here's what I'd like to do, and
it was me, not you.
Yeah, and having people participate, surprise, was, made a really big difference. And they felt more engaged, and I felt better afterwards that they had, had an opportunity to share their thoughts, and it was partially theirs too. It wasn't just what I had dictated to them. Yep. So, plus, as a manager, it makes it so much easier to hold people accountable when, as a group, you decided that this was how we're going to operate versus me telling you. So, having those tough conversations is easier to say, do you remember when we sat down and we talked about this, and we were all going to do it this way, and you're kind of not, so we need to look at that and see how we can get better at that, versus saying, remember I told you I wanted you to do it this way, and you're not, so you need to do it my way. And so it took a swing and a miss to realize that was wrong and do it better. Yeah.
Which leads into the last dimension or vantage point here. So, like, let's say you were you magically appeared to younger Adam right before he walks into that meeting.
Sure.
Like, what would you tell him to do, or like to do differently than what you had done? Adam, listen to me. I'm your ghost from the future, type of thing.
Sure.
Scrooge style, right? Whatever it is. Look at these chains. What would you say? Like, hey man, like, hold up, really quick. Before you walk into that room, know this. Like, what would you tell younger Adam to do differently in that situation?
Yeah, I again, I've not ever been, playing sports. I was captain on a few teams, and it wasn't because I was the most vocal person. I worked really hard, and I cared about what was going on, and in that sports instance, wanted to win. In work, I want to win too. I want to do well, and so I think, reminding myself that this isn't you. You're not the vocal, stand in front of the room and say this is how it's going to happen. Just because that was the realization afterwards that that wasn't me, and it didn't feel right. And luckily I realized that that's why it didn't work. Because I was trying to be somebody I wasn't in that situation. And so I think just reminding myself a little bit of who I am and what had been successful for me to that point. And hopefully I would have realized in that moment that my approach was a little bit wrong.
Yeah. Well, because it wasn't necessarily wrong that you thinking the troops needed rallying, because maybe they did. Maybe they needed some inspiration, right? Because things were not good, right? Mm-hmm. But that inspiration needed to come through who you are, right? And that lens. and not putting on someone else's shoes or someone else's hat and saying and delivering that inspiration that way. And there can be that disconnect. I think people have a kind of an innate BS detector. They kind of know when they're being like when something's just off, whether it's in sales or marketing or just or leadership, right? It's like just you maybe can't put your finger on it, but something's wrong here, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important, like to be who you are, and part of that, it's be confident in what you're bringing to the table, that you think you've got a good understanding of the situation, right? Great. Now, like you said, draw out everyone else's understanding and get that, because they're going to get that buy-in. They're going to have, like you said, that sense of ownership. Like, right. Hey, their hands are on this thing. Their fingerprints are on this thing too. And then to be able to lead there, I've heard like leadership talked about like to an extent like velvet steel, sure. Like where it's soft to the touch. But it's also strong. Mm-hmm. And I think leaders have to be strong, right? But they have to also be approachable and accessible. Right. They can't just feel cold and hard, right? And I think having that layer of velvet where they're accessible and they're approachable, but yet they are the ones that are leading, right? Mm-hmm. And that probably a million different metaphors you could use, but that's one that kind of stuck in my mind. I often like to use that phrase to describe my beard, velvet steel. So,
it has a sharp cut to it.
Soft but immovable,
yes,
right?
Yes, it looks very nice. No, and honestly, that experience then set me up down the road to be able to be honest about other things. Yeah. And, again, not being over demonstrative, when you tell me that you landed a big sponsorship or something, I flat out just told my staff, I'm really excited for you. I won't be doing cartwheels down the hallway, but I'll be excited. And it's something I realized I needed to work on too. So I've worked over the years to get more excited about those things that people would expect that I would. But going back and redoing that opened the door for me to then be honest about other things. About the way that I would lead and to hopefully help them understand that I really am excited for you. I am just not going to be jumping up and down and, so great job. I'm really proud of you.
High five.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you got it. I know you worked hard on it. So, it made the whole experience for me a lot easier, because had it worked the other way, I wouldn't have been happy having to carry that persona forward and be that person all the time. And eventually it would have come. There would have been a reckoning one way or another. But luckily enough, it happened right away. In realizing that it didn't go the way I'd hoped and doing it better. So, because you can't pretend to be something that you're not for terribly long. It gets very tiring. Yeah. So.
And maybe that's a fine line, because like we all have people that we look up to in life, right? And we all have people that say, like, I would love to be like them, and that's actually a really good thing. We learn from a very young age. We learn from imitation, right? Mm-hmm. That's the joke among parents, right? It's like all of a sudden, like it's like your kid's like, where'd you get that from? It's like, oh, you've been watching me, right? Yeah. It's like, no, do what I say, not what I do, right? That type of thing. And it's. The same dynamics, the same principles there are from any proverbial parent to child, right? So if you think about a leader, there's a similar dynamics there, because they're leading people just like a parent's leading a child, right? Mm-hmm. So the impulse there is good, like to want to imitate, but the value we bring to the world is that we're not that person. We're Kyle Schmitz, we're Adam Sutter, and so this is the same thing a child has to learn, is to be who they are as they're learning how to imitate. It's just some of the rote memorization and the functions of daily life, right? As they grow and mature, like you want them to grow in that maturity, that wisdom, to be able to exercise all that they've learned, but also understand that those principles and that get applied differently in situations. It goes back to the principles and the methods, and as we are growing, and I think we all lead in some capacity in our lives, whether it's just ourselves, right, or we're actually responsible for others, personally and professionally. To not forget exactly what you said, if you could go back and tell young Adam, hey man, just before you walk in the room, be who you are, right? The things that you're thinking, great. Like as far as like what you think needs to happen, just remember, be who you are, and things will go well.
Yes.
In that regards, and to, like you said, to take in the advice, but to have it filtered through who we are. and what we know is right is important. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if you could sum it up in like a "don't do this" type of thing, and you're like, "Hey kids, don't do this," how would you phrase your failure of? You'd mentioned before, taking advice. How would you phrase it in a "don't do this" type of way?
Maybe don't take advice verbatim. Yeah, if you want to look at it through that lens, that would probably be the right way to state that.
Yeah, we ought not to be just kind of machines, right?
Right.
Yeah. We need that wisdom of to be able to take it and apply it appropriately. That's hard, man, because it's easier. It's easier just to follow the method to copycat it, and that's often not the right thing.
Right. Yeah. It definitely makes it more difficult.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our gauntlet of questions because you're getting a little riled up here.
I know. I
thought we need to settle down. So.
Yes.
So speaking of learning by imitation, we were talking a little bit beforehand just how there's so many things and people that shape us positively, negatively, directly, indirectly, right? And so I'm curious for you, Adam, in your life, probably several folks, maybe several things, situations that have shaped you to be who you are, certainly. But who's one that maybe sticks out above the rest, or you take them out of the equation and you wouldn't be the Adam Sutter that you are today?
Yeah. I'm going to cheat a little bit and go with the multiple people answer.
Option B.
Right. Was that even on the table? No, I don't have, one solid mentor that I've just leaned on for a long time. For me, it's been, people I aspire to be like, or to get approval from, maybe is a way to put it. My wife would be a really good one. I don't remember if we mentioned on the podcast or if it was our conversation before, but we started dating in high school, and miraculously my grades improved in high school when I started dating her, because she's that kid that always worked a couple weeks ahead in the syllabus. So if I wanted to hang out with her, I had to do homework. That for me was an important
standards, baby.
Yeah, right. Wanting to make sure that she was, happy with what I was doing, and that was, putting in the time for homework and making sure I was a good student, because obviously that was something that was important to her. I was an all right student before that, but yeah, I did better after that, and I mentioned to you we've been together for 23 years, and so I still am trying to make sure that I'm, doing well and a good person, and the friends that I've chosen, I'm one of those people that is friendly with lots of people, but I would have a handful of really close friends, and they are all close friends because they all have some aspect of their life or some characteristic that I admire and try to imitate in some way. The reason I got an MBA is because it was something that was always floating around the back of my mind, and was talking with one of my friends the one day, and he's like, just go do your MBA. And I was like, yeah, but at the time I was between jobs, I wasn't working, I'm gonna have to borrow money. He's like, yep. And so that was really the impetus for me. He's just always been more willing to take risks than I have, and so having that person in my life, along with the other people that you can bounce an idea off of, and they'll just give that alternative opinion or push you to do things maybe that you normally wouldn't be comfortable with is really important. I'd even say that the coach that let me be in charge of that thing, that fundraiser, was somebody that gave me an opportunity to do something that I hadn't been in charge a lot of things prior to that, but it gave me an opportunity to lead in that capacity, and I felt very proud of that. I felt really good after I did it. Seeing how grateful the people were when they got food and they got presents and stuff to give their kids, and that was a really cool thing to feel like you were part of that, and so that absolutely shaped where I ended up and what I'm doing. And so, again, there hasn't been one particular person, but lots of people that have made me who I am, and my parents even. I mentioned that neither of them had gone to college. They actually both. My dad is a deacon now, and so he went back and was doing that while I was in college. And my mom.
He's a deacon?
Yes.
What's a deacon?
In the Catholic Church.
Oh, cool.
So
awesome.
yeah.
Cool,
So
cool,
he had to do a bunch of theology stuff and all that
awesome.
kind of stuff. And my mom went back and got her degree as a grief counselor.
Wow, cool.
And so it was kind of interesting to have both my parents in school at the same time I was. But so both very hardworking
cool.
people and both great examples. And I thought about that a little bit with the MBA thing too, because I had kids. I was busy.
They're not done learning yet.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it was a cool example to have from them, to be able to follow and do something that, again, I knew I wanted to do. It had always been a goal, but I just hadn't had the guts to jump in and do it.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnottodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually love what you said about, obviously, your wife. That's been, advice that's come through here. The importance of marrying, picking who your spouse is going to be.
Sure.
Right? Really, really important. But then you've also probably heard the mantra, that we are, we're really the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And, I think having too many close friends is a bad thing, in one sense, because it kind of, I'm all for having a great network and folks that you're acquainted with, and in a sense that kind of like friend level.
Yep.
But the folks that are in your inner circle, I think you have to choose wisely. And like you said, and I love how you said it, that they all had different traits that you didn't have, but that you really admired, and how that's influenced you, which is so cool. And even with your parents. They woke up and said, "Hey, we're still fogging a mirror. Like, what's next in our lives? Right? Like, this could be a vocational deacon. Like, cool. Like,
that, or it could have been getting 4 kids out of the house, freed up some time. But
exactly. But I love that, because it's like, hey, life's not over. Like, right? Like,
yes.
what's next for us? Like, and people, when they get 40, 50 years old, like, the reality is, generally speaking, statistically speaking, you still have another lifetime to live. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like, what do you want to do with your life? Right.
Right.
And you don't have to start over in diapers. That's the glory
Which is
of
great.
it, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's really cool too is with that coach that gave you that leadership opportunity for a greater social impact, because it's exactly what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Like, and it gave you that first taste of like, I could lead a team. I could lead a team to making an impact for the greater good. It's exactly what you're doing today, which is so cool. And maybe you've made that connection and thought about that, and it's just amazing. Like, we don't know, and your coach had no idea maybe at the time what he was inspiring me to do, or obviously couldn't predict the future when you were where you'd be today. But love seeing just varying people's fingerprints on our lives, and how they've inspired us to go be great in the world, which is cool. So.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed having him he was our history teacher as well.
Cool.
And so he's my AP history teacher, and he always jokingly told me I'd make the perfect vice president because I was...
is that next on the list?
No, gosh, no.
2024?
Yeah, right.
Schmitz and Sutter? Right?
There you go.
I'll run for president.
I'll do it if you do it. But no, I mean, he said, you're... How did he... I would be the perfect vice president because I'm the good kid that doesn't do anything wrong, and so he'd be able to point to this guy as, no, I'm a good person because he's my running mate.
Clean up the PR mess.
Right. So again, it was a offhand comment in class that was, as a kid when you're impressionable, and it was, so obviously he thought highly of me, which was good. My parents were always encouraging and nice to me, but they're your parents. They're kind of supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So
There's something wrong if they're not, right?
Right. So it was neat to hear something nice from somebody else, and then again, giving the opportunity to do something like he did with that little nonprofit thing was great. So built the confidence a little bit and helped to get me where I am. So
yeah. And years later, you're thinking through what are you good at, what do you enjoy doing, what are your economic opportunities, and once you know it, here you are. Right?
Yeah,
it's cool. All right, man. Well, enough with the best advice. I'm curious with some of the worst advice you're floating around, and you already mentioned just taking advice, on that idea. So I'm not gonna let you try to play off of that. If you thought about it, if it crossed your mind. But what's some of the worst advice you're floating around, or maybe that you were given somewhere along the way in your career, or even potentially maybe you gave really bad advice that comes to mind, and you're like, man, if I could have that one back. But what's some of the worst advice you hear floating around?
Yeah. This is not really business advice.
Could be personal.
But I know. So growing up, I got picked on quite a bit in school, not being a big kid and not having a lot of money at home, and my parents always told me just ignore them, it'll go away, which is absolutely true. It's 100% true advice. It'll go away. Doesn't matter. But it's tough as a kid to see that far in the future, and so I guess I don't necessarily know that that's bad advice, but I've thought about that now as my daughter is starting to have some of those things at school. I mean, any kid at school gets picked on a little bit here or there, but and I don't know what the right advice is, but I've found that popping in my head of ignore them. It doesn't matter what they think, and so if anybody has the right advice, I'm happy to hear that. But that's something that when you're, especially as a kid and dealing with that type of situation, it's hard to see that far in the future to know. And even some of those kids that were picking on me in school, I'm friendly with at this point in time because we were all kids, and we shouldn't hold that against everybody as we get older. But it's just it was hard to take at that point in time, and I think there's got to be a better way to handle that, and obviously being empathetic to what they're going through and that kind of thing. But and I think you could apply that to business just as well. If you get a bad review or something doesn't go well with you run into a boss that you're not super excited about, or things like that
or you get fired, or
that it
or the startup fails, or
right. There are ways to I guess take that in a more positive light and be able to move forward with that. But it's like I said, it's the right advice because it really doesn't matter, and it won't matter as you get older. But at that moment, it's tough advice to take and use in a productive way. So
yeah, what makes it. It reminds me of like how they say the best lies are partially true. Mm-hmm. I think there's a similar principle at play in this, because you're exactly right. It's good advice and it's terrible advice at the same time, and it really has to do with who's giving it, and if that vision is being cast for long term. Because like when you're 5 years old, look, a 20th of your life is 1 year, right? Yeah. Like when you're 20 years old, a year is a 20th of your life, right? So like we learn how to see things in greater perspective when we're young, and we're going through those kind of experiences, emotion or all that kind of stuff. It's just like we don't know how to think through that. And so in one sense, they're like, ignore them. It's not going to matter in 30 years. It's like, and what you're saying, it's like it's really contextually poor advice. And I think you're exactly right. Like the principle, like just in thinking business, like in one sense, it doesn't matter if the startup failed and you blew all the venture capital. But it matters right now, right?
Yep.
And what about the impressions of future investors and all that kind of stuff? And especially if you mismanage things or whatever it is, it's like it does matter. in one sense, yeah, in 30 years from now, like, and you'll fail, and you're going to learn from it and all that kind of stuff. But context is really, really important for sure. And I think that's what I hear you saying. It's, we can say true things, but if we fail to give the context, and even inspire, like, kind of like help people to see, if we've been at the top of the mountain, help them to try to see what we've been seeing, and give them that context for that advice, then it can maybe have unintended consequences.
Yeah, and I think especially in a business sense, I think framing it in what you can learn from that mistake or instance or that that bad thing.
Well, even personally, though, right?
Right. Yeah, and be able to move that forward. It changes the framework a little bit of what's happening and that advice a little bit. So because the kid's thinking, oh, it does matter, right? I mean, I got to go back to school tomorrow.
I got to go eat at this table. I have to go, over here. It hurts. What if they trip me, or if they're, being a big old, fat bully type of thing? I mean,
sure.
like, it does matter, or whatever the situation might be for an adult or a student alike. The context can be so important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's good, man. It's actually good caution for us. Like, when we're giving advice, help us to think through, like, how this advice is going to land, and are we thinking through the right context, and is it going to be received in the same way that we actually are thinking or mean for it,
Mm-hmm.
Or are we building a bunch of assumptions and presuppositions that aren't translating from one party to the next?
Yeah,
that's good. I mean, that's terrible. It's terrible advice, right? So,
yes. Depends on the context.
Depends on the context, right? All right. So it's rush hour, Adam, in every major city in the world, from Green Bay to De Pere to Portage to Hong Kong, right? And billions of people listening to What Not to Do with Adam Sutter, obviously, because that's what you do on your commute,
right?
Whether you're going to Madison or not, right?
Uh-huh.
And billions of people stuck in a traffic jam. They look up out of their window and they see a billboard, and once you know it. How ironic, it's Adam Sutter's billboard, right? What message do they see, Adam? What message do you want the world to see?
Man, I think I'd go with, so what I tell my kids, every morning I'd send them to school, or I'd drop them at somebody's house to hang out for an afternoon or something. I just tell them to be good. And at first I think it started out as, don't do anything that's going to embarrass me. Like, be good, be nice.
Right.
But I think for me, at least, it's taken on a little bit more meaning. And I guess in a couple of different ways. Be great would probably be good advice too, but it's tough to be great all the time. So if you can be good consistently, that's a good thing to be. But just, I think just as human beings, as people, being good to other people, and I know that I have found that it kind of goes along with the what not to do thing. When I've gotten outside of my comfort zone or my general character as far as being a nice person and being good, it doesn't feel right. And so if we can all be good people and behave well and try hard, I think that helps goes a long way for people.
Yeah.
So just
awesome.
In general.
Yeah, and that's a message we all need to hear, and just every day, right?
Yeah.
My mom always used to say, she'd drop us off. She's like, all right, be fun and be good. If you can't do both, be good.
Yeah.
Or have fun and be good, and if you can't do both, be good. So.
That's my version of got milk.
Right, got milk, right.
Just the two word.
Yeah, you love it. Got milk. Good. Cool. Okay, bonus round. 3 books, man. 3 books that have been really impactful for you, and that you think that that the longer that people delay reading these books, the longer they're delaying really positive changes in their life, because these books are so impactful.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for for success?
One for me that I read, probably 5 years ago or so, which my wife then knew all about, being a teacher, but Carol Dweck's Mindset.
Okay.
It was something that I realized in the best version of me was doing. So I don't know if you're familiar at all, but it's just basically about how you're thinking about things.
Okay. I've heard of the book. It's been recommended, which usually if something gets recommended a couple times in a short period, it means I need to go get it. So
Sure.
Yeah.
But I know for me, one of the things again with getting picked on is that as I got a little bit older and got into sports and did all right at sport. I'm not a dominant athlete by any means, but I had my niche, and it felt good to be good at something and to keep going. And I think in reading her book, I had the realization that it was a mindset thing, that now I felt good about what was going on, and being able to build on that type of thing. And it's the same in in business, or my wife knew about it because they teach that to the kids at school. How are you thinking about, I can't do this math problem, or what's your mindset when you're thinking about that? So I just think that was a good one for me to really open my mind to, there's a better way to think about it. And like I said, in my best moments, that's exactly what I do. But everybody has bad days and bad things.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Yeah, well, we can't all have that beard. So, but no, that one was a really important one for me. I'm sure everybody's read it. If you haven't, go get it. But Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That one I listened to as an audiobook, just driving in the car, and it was like you. It was one that people kept saying, "Yeah, listen to this one," and I just hadn't. I don't know that there's a lot of new information in there, but it's just a really good. I found myself several times being reminded of something that I had learned, earlier in life, as far as how to treat people, or that type of thing. And I actually, in that first job, a little down the road after we had some time, after the first incident, I actually got that for all of my staff.
Cool. As
an example of, this is how we should be dealing with each other and other people. So we talked about that a little bit, and it was kind of my own little book club thing for them. But I just think it's a really good reminder of how to treat people and be successful.
It's amazing. I'm actually reading through it right now for the first time, and it's amazing how obvious and common sense this stuff is that you've never heard before. Like, it's just like, how come no one's ever told me this? It's like, why is it so obvious? Why does it seem like there's such common sense, but I've never heard it? Like, I mean, like, it's kind of like a weird thing. I don't know. I just been marveling, like, I should have known this. Like, this is just obvious. It's common sense. But how come I've not? It's just, that's good though. I love it. I mean, when something impacts you so much and you gift it to your team, like, what a great way to be able to do that,
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, that you described it better than I did. That it's not stuff that's necessarily new to us, but like, duh.
Right, it's like...
Why haven't I been doing that? So,
oh man,
yes, it's really good book.
Funny
we absolutely are. I enjoy also reading... I'm sure there are other authors out there, but anything by like Seth Godin or Malcolm Gladwell, don't always necessarily agree with everything they write, but I think they just think differently. So again, when you're riding in the car and listening to a book, it's just they're just both very interesting to me, and how they write and what they write about and how they look at problems or challenges.
What's your recommendation if someone wanted to pick up a Seth Godin or Malcolm Gladwell book? Which ones would you say they should go with?
Oh boy, Malcolm Gladwell. I really like Blink.
Okay.
I just thought that was an interesting way to think about things. Seth Godin, the first one I got, that being a marketing person, it was All Marketers Are Liars, was the name of the book. And it's all about storytelling. And I think he has since, admitted some, or changed his mind on some of the things. I've heard interviews that, maybe he thinks a little bit differently on some things, but it's just a really good study in how a story is told from a marketing perspective, and how certain companies can really do better by having that story behind their brand, and what does that mean. And so both of those were very interesting ones for me. But yeah, I generally, if I see that a new one's out, it's I try to make time to look at those. And then the other, I'll add a fourth set. You mentioned it, at least the movies earlier. I didn't like to read as a kid. It just wasn't my favorite thing to do. And I happened to randomly pick up The Hobbit in 6th grade for a book report, and read it. And I'm not a huge fantasy sci-fi guy, but I think that Tolkien does just a really good job of. He's so descriptive with what he does that it just makes the stories really interesting. So I read The Hobbit, and I read all the Lord of the Rings books, and really enjoyed reading those for pleasure. And that was one of the first times that I picked up a book and was excited to keep going in reading it. It wasn't an assignment necessarily for school, so for me those really kind of kicked off. Well, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome.
If folks haven't read those, they're dense. There's a lot there, but just very, very interesting books.
Yeah, unparalleled, in authorship. It's just, it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I got my wife a few years ago for her birthday a second edition of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay.
Which is cool. So,
yeah,
we're big fans. We love the movies aren't on the same level with the books, but I still think they've done a good job in just kind of bringing to life some of those things.
Yes.
And it's a lot of fun. Our kids are young, but they still love it. Our oldest, he's 3, but like when the orcs show up on the screen, he's like, kill them, get those orcs, like that type of thing. And just the good versus bad and the storytelling, it's cool. So
yes,
awesome.
Yeah,
fun.
very cool.
Wonderful. Adam, man, this has been just a blast. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, your story, and so much good here. It's cool because it's like, when you roll into to a school, if you're the one to come in and give a presentation or that type of thing, and you hear that stat, 88% of alumni are satisfied with their careers, right? Or 1 in 5, going to the career of a presenter that they heard come in, on behalf of junior achievement.
Yep.
And I think what's amazing is you might not actually ever meet those people in your entire lifetime.
No.
You would have you don't know who those 88% are, right? And it's some dynamic here. Like there could be something that you said in our time together this afternoon where someone on the other end, miles away, their life was just altered, radically so, in a much better direction, which is so cool. And so, you sharing your story, you being willing to lean into a few failures, or take a deep dive into one main one, right? And how that can have an effect where it can equip someone else for success. It's
Sure.
so cool, man. So thank you so much for the time and sharing your story.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
Awesome. If folks want to get in touch with you, contact with you, maybe they want to get involved in junior achievement in their area, or just learn more about it, or see how they can support you guys, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me, it's Adam Sutter, Sutter, on LinkedIn. Otherwise, if you're interested in junior achievement, you can visit our website. It's wisconsin.ja.org. Whether you're in Green Bay or another part of the state, you can search on the website by areas. So depending on what area you live in, you can find your area and the right contact information to get involved in volunteering. On a national level, Junior Achievement's an international organization at this point. Actually celebrated their 100th anniversary last year, so cool. That's pretty cool. So you can find it wherever you are in the country. But really great organization to be a part of, and like I said, really fun to be able to know that you're potentially making that kind of a difference for a kid, which is really cool. So
It is. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. Well, Adam, thank you so much again. We'll have that in the show notes along with the books, and folks that want to get in touch with you, reach out to you and go from there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a fantastic conversation with Adam. Man, I got fired up. I love the work that Junior Achievement is doing. I for one, in high school, I'm going to date myself. I graduated in 2004. for my Schwab 9, go Jaguars. And, I didn't take anything, I didn't have any classes on entrepreneurship. I think I was taught how to balance a checkbook, but that was about the extent of training for financial literacy. I think I took a sports marketing class, and it was basically just to create a fantasy football team, and we crushed them. The Mobile Moose, baby. Woo! Mobile Moose. But I mean, there's so much more that could be taught. So I don't know exactly what's going on in schools today, but it seems like there's still some sort of incompleteness, and it seems like junior achievement is taking some great strides to help fill the gaps, and at least they have been for 101 years. And so I think this is a call for we just need more of that for the next generation. But anyway, I will get off my bandwagon, and let's recap here what Adam told us not to do. First, don't forget you are the culture. Don't forget you are the culture. So let's just stop and talk about culture here. And I'm going to get on my soapbox, my bandwagon here yet again. But sometimes we think culture is like this thing that we can just, grab off the shelf and apply, right? Like it was like as if it's some kind of like a la carte. Like, well, what kind of culture do you want? Okay, great. Let's have that be the culture. Or sometimes we think that culture is something like that happens from the outside and it works its way into our organizations. And I'm here to bust up that dream. That is like the worst lie I've ever heard. And the reality is this. It's that our beliefs work themselves out of our little fingertips, and it creates a culture. Another way to say that is really culture is our beliefs externalized. Right? And this is why you can go throughout so many different places in the world and see so many different cultures, because those cultures, if you trace them back to the roots, to the inner belief system, you'll find that they're different. Like, I hope this is like a light bulb moment for you. So if you're trying to manufacture culture, you really have it backwards. You're trying to go from the outside in. What you need to do is get clear on the beliefs, on the values, and realize that those are the things that are shaping your culture. So if you don't like something about your culture, guess what? It has something to do with the values and the belief system in your culture. And so this gets back to, I could ref on that for hours, but we're not going to. But this gets back to the first not to do from Adam. Don't forget, you are the culture. Wow. Okay, so let's put this together. If culture is your belief system externalized, your values externalized, your theory coming into practice, what's in your head now, it's coming out your hands, right? If that's true, then that means that you sit upstream from the rest of your organization, and they are going to do what you do, except not go as far. It's a similar saying that a people will never be more holy than their pastor, right? I've heard that before. It's like if a pastor wears a suit and tie, the people might wear slacks and a dress shirt and maybe a tie. If the pastor wears jeans and a blazer, people are showing up in like flip-flops and shorts. So you kind of get the picture of that dynamic. And it's true in organizations. If you're in a leadership capacity, you sit upstream from the rest of the organization, and what you do will affect what they do. Why? Because they are adopting your belief system as they witness it, as they observe it coming out of your fingertips. But here's the deal. They're not you. They don't make the same as you, and so they're not going to go as far as you, right? And that's the deal. You have to go, if you want them to go to an inch, you have to go a mile. You have to hold yourself to that higher standard of excellence and be more gracious towards them. You want them to come an inch, you got to go a mile. And so a little bit of a freebie there, but we're diving into this idea of culture, and I think it's so important because I think today we get it so wrong. And the biggest takeaway from here, from Adam's story, he was talking about, seeking to establish a culture and listen and awareness of current situation and seek to learn by example. Those things are so important. Guess what? Those are all rooted in particular values that you have inside of why those are important. And when you practice those things, it creates the culture. And if you're the leader and you're practicing those things, guess what? You're going to influence the culture. So the best thing you can do, and Jim Collins talks about this in his book, Good to Great, is just getting really clear on the values of the organization and have everyone on the same page. Another great book when it comes to aligning values within your team is Traction by Gino Wickman. Highly recommend the book and the surrounding works there. But don't forget, you are the culture, right? What you believe is going to come out of your fingertips. And what comes out of your fingertips is what you truly believe. And that's going to give you a culture, whether you like it or not. So the best thing you can do is just be aware and be honest of the current culture at hand and trace that back to the belief system. And if you're not happy with it, then you got to change what you believe. You got to figure out different values, or you got to realize, hey, there's a gap between what we say we believe and what's actually happening. We got to fix that, right? Get everyone on the same page. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Don't tell people what to do. Don't tell people what to do. This is where he came in and was like, hey, this is how it's going to go, my way or the highway type of thing. You could totally do that. And it's probably going to backfire in your face. It's not the greatest way to lead people. Really, if you're leading people, you want them to have a sense of ownership, right? You want them to have a stake in the matter. You want them to be jealous for it, and want to see the result accomplish, whatever the goal or objective might be. Well, you just tell them like, hey, this is what you're going to do. You're taking the think away from them. You're taking the ownership away from them. And you're basically just saying, well, hey, robot, I'm going to press a couple buttons and that's exactly what you're going to do. Great. Well, if you treat people like a robot, that if you can just, here's the input and then you're going to get the output. Oh man, I don't know. Probably not going to go well for you. Maybe you have a different experience. Fine and well. I'm going to side here. Don't tell people what to do. Lead them. Give them a sense of ownership. Help them to feel like they belong and that this is for them, and fuel that jealousy, that desire, that zealousness in them for the objective, the goal. What is the company chasing? What's that mission? What's that vision, right? When you get buy-in there, that's really, really powerful. And then you can help to lead people in that conversation and let them speak and let them weigh in, and then lead and kind of guide the conversation from there. Really, really powerful. Last but not least, don't take advice at face value. Don't take advice at face value. And so it's not that we shouldn't take advice, right? But it is saying that we have to think through the advice that's given to us and apply it with wisdom, right? So just because someone says we should do something because it worked for them or whatever it might be, great. We have to distinguish first between principles and methods, right? So in the advice that's given to us, what's that transcendent principle? Yeah, that's just infinite. It's always, it never changes, right? And then what's the method? And the method does change. Here's how that principle is applied in this situation. But I'm in this situation. So if I applied that principle in the same way, it would backfire on me, right? So I have to rethink through how I can apply that principle in my situation. And that's the right way to take advice, right? If we just take the advice, verbatim, man, we can, it's going to be weary. And as Adam talked about too, it's also, how we see the advice, through someone's particular personality. Like, hey, this person was this way and it worked for them. So, and here's what they said to do. So clearly this is what I need to do. No, again, we have to press in and really kind of juice the advice for its principles and figure out then how best to apply. Because the principles are the key. Like that's the key. That's the goal. We want the principles. That's that. And then we want the wisdom to say, okay, then how can we practice? How can we apply this principle in my particular situation? So really, really good stuff in this one. Don't forget, you are the culture. And don't forget that culture isn't something you can just grab off the shelf and add to your cart. What you believe comes out of your fingertips, and what comes out of your fingertips is what you truly believe. And that gives you a culture, and that explains why, depending on where you go, other countries in the world, other cities, and other communities within your own geographic area, why there are different cultures. Why? Well, because there's a set of belief systems undergirding that local community, and it creates a culture, right? So don't forget, you are the culture. You sit upstream from your organization. The second, don't tell people what to do. And third, don't take advice at face value. Don't take advice verbatim. Carefully distinguish between principles and methods, and seek wisdom on how you can best apply. Once you grasp the principles, seek wisdom on how you can best apply it. Man, okay, cool. So this is fun. I get really passionate about this stuff, and I'm just talking to my computer screen. So I hope that you guys are encouraged by this and learning and taking some gold here. And feel free to push back if you think I said something that you don't agree with. Hey, it's a safe space. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a note, give me an email, and it'll be fun. We can even hop on a call and kind of talk, and would love to hear your perspective and what you think on things, and maybe share a little bit more on mine too. So, man, I love you guys. Thanks for listening. This podcast is about you. It's for you. I couldn't do it without you. At the time of this recording, man, we crossed 3,100 downloads and counting, which is super, super cool. So thank you so much. Continue to like it and share it. A great way you can do that is to continue to give us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. I'm seeing more and more pop up, which is super exciting to me. It means so much to hear thoughtful, honest reviews, and just really just encouragement in the work. It lets me know that you guys actually find value in this, which is cool. So if you found value in this, don't underestimate the power of just letting me know. Either shoot a note, email, LinkedIn message, whatever it might be. It means so much to me, and it helps me to know that I'm on the right track in my mission to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving. So can't understate that, can't overstate that enough. If you want to hear somebody on the podcast, let me know. And maybe that somebody is you. If it is, great, reach out to me and let's set up a time to get you on the show and hear your story. Even with COVID-19, we're doing this over Zoom, which is exciting. So it's like we don't have to slow down. We can still have the conversations and still see each other's lovely faces, which is pretty cool. If you're a company and you're considering about wanting to get your story in front of this niche community that's rapidly growing, and that there's a sense of like infinite value in sharing your story with this kind of group and on this setting in this medium, reach out to me. Let's connect. Let's sit down and let's just get on the same page and see if we'd be a great fit and partner together to tell your story. Anything else? Let me check my notes here. Hey, I hope you guys are enjoying some of the new stuff. Songs for the American Spirit, and you can do more. Short form, exciting stuff. You can do more, really about mindset. It's really about, moving on from what not to do and now thinking, hey, what should we do? But the first thing before I even ask what should we do is just really embracing we can actually do more. And it's identifying those those limiting beliefs, maybe those false narratives that we believe so much for so long, and it's helping to correct that. So short form, I hope that you guys are enjoying that. If you're listening in the morning, awesome. Before you get to the gym, is a pick me up, whatever it might be, halfway through your day. I hope it's inspiring to you, and I hope it's encouraging to you. If there are topics you want to hear me riff on, shoot them over to me. Let me know. And Songs from American Spirit. I love this one because I get to share a little bit of my musical talents and abilities, things that I'm good at. But I love poetry, and I love being able to take poetry and bring it to life with my music. Even more than that, I love to be able to make it a community thing. And as that segment and series expands, going to be pulling in other artists, musicians. So if you're a musician and a songwriter, and you know someone who is, and they've got a song that really embodies that American spirit of never backing down, never giving up, and fighting for faith, family, and freedom, everything that this country is founded on. Really, really cool stuff. Have them reach out to me. I'd love to be able to feature them in that series, Songs for the American Spirit. Awesome. Well, I think that's it. It's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.